For the second 25 years of Ball State athletics history, we start with perfection. There's only ever been one unblemished season in Cardinal football history, and it was 1949. John Magnabosco's squad went 8-0, winning by an untouchable 27 points per game. For what it's worth, that would have led FBS football last season by 2.5 points. Fred Kehoe opened the year's offense with a 92-yard touchdown, and he never looked back. He led the state in scoring that fall with 14 touchdowns. So understandably, it was a boomtown era for running the football, the 40s, 50s, and 60s. There was Kehoe, then All-American Tim Brown in the late 50s, the first Ball State pro. Jim Todd broke almost every record in the 60s and rode that to the NFL too. Just in time for Amos Van Pelt to break them all again, the school's first 2,000-yard runner. You know, there was also a guy named Merv around that time, but more on him later. In 1962, Ray Louthen would take over as head coach. He would also coach baseball, and he'd be the AD for a time. Just 4 years in, he had the Cards in a bowl game, the Grantland Rice Bowl of 1965, another unbeaten year, although it ended in a tie, and then again in 1967, the very first year of Ball State, now Schumann Stadium. Meanwhile, the school's original two sports, well, they thrived as well. Basketball saw its first 1,000-point scorer in 1950, Marv Heaton. He was the Cards' only 5-time letter winner, who also played football and baseball. And tennis, but that was after the war. He'd soon be joined by Jack Cross, Stan Davis, John Lee in 1964. But it was another 60s man that's one of the program's elite still, Ed Butler, the school's #1 rebounder 54 years later. Single game, single season, career total, he's got it. And he's also got a trip to the first NCAA tournament for the Cardinals, the college division in the '64 Great Lakes Regional. That appearance coming 7 years after a trip to the NAIA National Tournament. Ball State beat Troy in the first round in 1957. And that brings up an important point. See, the athletic department made huge strides in this window. 5 new sports were added, countless new coaches, and in 1950, the Cardinals joined the Indiana Collegiate Conference, then joined the NCAA and NAIA in 1956, before settling on just the former in 1968. The Cardinal Varsity Club, well, that launched in 1959, and since its inception, it's raised more than $50 million to support Cardinals student athletes. And 4 years later, new gym, University, later Irving Gym, opened up, hosting the Michigan Wolverines. All right, but back to the athletes themselves. Because remember Merv, that football running back? Well, it turns out he was better at something else.
Right field, if it stays fair, it could be trouble. If it stays fair, it is. Fair ball, home run for Rettenmund.
Yeah, Merv Rettenmund played baseball for the Cardinals and the Orioles, Reds, Padres, and Angels. He won all conference 2 times and the World Series 3. It was a golden era for Ball State baseball. Ed Sherry would follow Rettenmund. He was the school's first All-American in '67, and his .455 batting average is the standard today. And 3 of the program's top 5 ERAs, well, they were all twirled in the '60s by Snodgrass, Schmitz, and Nixon. Honestly, it was just a festival of good back then. The Cardinals captured the ICC's first all-sports trophy in 1961. They won the league in cross-country, golf, swimming, and wrestling. They were runners-up in tennis and track. They won a lot in those sports. Swimming took at least 6 straight ICC titles from '58 to '63. John Llewellyn was the head coach. He was a track star, invited to the Olympic trials in the '30s, and then he coached Ball State swimming, tennis, golf, and even football. The pool today is named in his honor. Tennis then won in '57. That snapped DePauw's stranglehold on the league. Track won a handful. Actually, the Cards were 3rd in the country in 1967. Wrestling, too, won its share of titles. So we should probably mention at this point that Ball State had a wrestling team. First match in 1959, Don Jamrose actually won the Little State Championship that year at 157 pounds. In 1955, men's gymnastics was added, soccer in '61, the same year the Midwest Collegiate Volleyball Conference. Later, the Midwest Collegiate Volleyball Association was founded with the likes of Michigan State, Ohio State, and the Cardinals. Don Shondell was the school's director of intramural athletics then, and the team's first head coach. He would lead the Cardinals until 1998, making 14 Final Fours. He was just one of many legends of that time, though. Athletic trainer Sayers Bud Miller was a part of that era. So was golf coach and sports information director Earl Yestingsmeyer, and the voice of the Cardinals, Maury Mannies, debuted in 1956. Fittingly, he'd call football and basketball games in Muncie for the next 56 years.